All right, everybody. We are back for episode 5. Today we have Reed on as our guest. I'll have him introduce himself in just a second. But don't forget to like and subscribe. We're on Spotify. It's Utah Aviate, and then YouTube also as Utah Aviate. If you're wanting to buy some merch, your t-shirts, hats, jackets, polos, whatever you want, that's utahaviate.shopify.com. So you guys can go there, buy whatever you want. But today we have a special guest, Reed. How about you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay, well, my name's Reed Hatch. I'm an airframe and power plant mechanic, also commonly referred to as an AMT, an aviation maintenance technician. And I've been helping you guys out with some maintenance on your fleet of aircraft. And that's the work that I do and have been for a while.
Awesome. How long have you been doing aircraft maintenance?
Well, I got my license in 2006, and so I guess 19 years.
Oh, wow.
It seems like, yeah.
Awesome. What'd you do before that?
Well, I went to a school specifically for learning that trade, if you could call it a trade. So that program was 18 months, and prior to that, I was attending the University of Arizona and had kind of realized that maybe I wanted to be involved in aviation in a more hands-on type way.
Yeah.
So.
And you're a pilot as well.
Yeah, a private pilot. That's something that happened much further down the road than getting the AMP. Being a pilot is not a required thing to have for working on airplanes, which is kind of a funny thing. I think having a pilot's license makes you a better mechanic, or it can, but they're actually not really related. So.
Gotcha. Did you, obviously you wanted to become a pilot or else you wouldn't have, but did you want to be a pilot prior to becoming a mechanic?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I was kind of faced with a little bit of a choice between, do I go down the commercial pilot path or the maintenance side of things, and decided that just my mentality is better suited to maintenance.
Yeah. Did you do any sort of maintenance besides airplanes before, or?
No, I didn't really have experience in, say, automotive or any other similar type field prior to going to AMP school, but I do think that from an early age, just the hobbies or interests that I had as a kid kind of tended to involve that sort of I don't know, hands-on, just tinkering with stuff, building models, taking stuff apart, trying to put it back together. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
And so a lot of people don't know the process of becoming an airplane mechanic. Kind of walk us through what that looks like. And I don't know if you know the changes that have happened since you got your licensing or certificates.
Yeah. When I went to school, I think I went to an aviation maintenance specific school. That's what they taught, and it was an 18-month program. And back then, there was a specific classroom time requirement, and I can't remember specifically what it was, but it was a lot of hours. And if you missed class, then you had to make up that time.
Yeah.
And yeah, my thought is it was like 2,000 hours of classroom time or something. Now, my understanding is that that time requirement has been relaxed maybe a little bit, and now you just need to show competency or something along those lines, which kind of makes more sense than sitting at a desk just because you have to. But yeah, I guess I haven't really sat down and looked at the regulations pertaining to getting a license now.
Gotcha. So is it more like a trade school, or did you get a degree at the same time?
I did not get a degree at the school that I went to. All they did was meet the requirements for the classroom time, the hands-on experience, and they provided a good education in preparation for taking the exams.
Yeah.
But I didn't take the written exams at the school. That was a separate thing. And then the practical test, which is a multi-day test, that was also something that I had to arrange on my own and take care of. So the school really was just focused on teaching the required material. They had a syllabus, and it was pretty specific as to what you were going to learn in each segment or each class throughout the program. But yeah, no associates. Although later on, I think they started offering something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess now, like, you can go to UVU and get a degree, right? Get a bachelor's degree in mechanic work, right? Or whatever the degree is. But you also get your airplane mechanics certificates on top of that.
Yeah, I haven't looked at their program, but I know UVU does have some really good, like, aviation management type degree, and a 4-year degree can really open up a lot of opportunities for a person.
Yeah. So that helps in the mechanic world?
It depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Like, maybe an example is I've kind of toyed around with the idea of maybe later on in my career I would enjoy being an instructor at a school or something. And often a position like that would, they'd have preference for someone that has a degree.
Yeah.
But in just getting an entry-level position in a maintenance shop, if you've got your A&P, that's what any employer is going to look for. They're going to say, oh, can this person sign off the work that they're doing on the aircraft? So the A&P's really your ticket to get into the field.
Yeah. Now, for people who don't know, I mean, you can become an aircraft mechanic without the A&P.
Well,
or I guess, no, that's the IA, right? With an IA.
It depends on what you're trying to do. You could get a job in a maintenance facility, just some shop that works on airplanes. You could get a job as a mechanic's helper, and not have your A&P. And you could actually do kind of an apprenticeship type role and eventually get your A&P that way. But in order to sign off actual work in the aircraft records, which is a requirement, that necessitates an airframe and power plant license.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you're kind of really limited in what sorts of jobs you can get without having the A&P.
Gotcha. So, I mean, the process seems kind of similar to getting like your pilot's license. You
Yeah,
take
and a
some
lot
classes,
yeah.
they teach you how to do it, and then you have your, is the end exam, like, are you demonstrating
Exactly.
how to work on an airplane? Like, do they give you an engine and say, take this part, put it back together, or what's the exam like?
It's a very involved exam. In a way, it's similar to a check ride. You're demonstrating your ability to do tasks in a whole range of areas, kind of like how you've got the ACS for the pilot licenses. But there's a lot of different categories where you're showing competency. So it's a long exam, and you can do just the airframe side and then the power plant side separately. You could get just a power plant rating or just an airframe rating. But I think that it's much more common for people to get both at the same time. Because again, like looking for jobs, maybe if you're already working as a helper or something, and you get your airframe license first, then you'd be able to I guess do more on your own at that job. But I don't think it's common for a shop to hire someone with just one rating.
Gotcha.
And eventually you'd want both anyway, so you just do it all at once. Not sure if I got off topic there.
No, you're good. That answered my question. I mean, it was just, I don't know anything about that world of like how to get the licensing, how to, and I'm assuming it's all managed or facilitated by the FAA.
Yeah. Usually you're doing it with a designee rather than someone that actually works for, say, the FSDO.
Okay.
So similar to finding a DPE for your check rides, to take the practical exam for the A&P, there's individuals that administer that exam, and then if you pass, then they can sign a temporary certificate, and you go from there. But I think it would technically be possible to do it with an FAA employee.
Yeah.
But I don't think those guys are so busy.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we can do a check ride with an FAA guy, but we prefer to do it with
Yeah,
the DPE.
it's similar to that.
Okay.
In so many ways, it's very similar to the pilot side of things.
Yeah.
You've got written exams first that are really just the computer tests, multiple choice. And again, it's like there's a huge pool of questions, and they don't publish them, and you can get study guides that have maybe the exact question, maybe something similar to the exact question, and you just go through those questions over and over again, and then take your written exams and then the practical. So
that makes sense.
It's just kind of more all at once than with the pilot stuff.
Now, like additional certifications, like you got your IA. Is that like you have to have so much time working on aircrafts before you can get that?
Yeah.
What other types of certificates can you get as a mechanic?
Well, the only other one, and I think I can say this without being incorrect, although I could be mistaken.
We won't hold you to
yeah,
it. But don't fail your test because of this one.
Right.
No.
I'm thinking that the inspection authorization, the IA, that's kind of an add-on thing to the A&P, and that's the only other certification, if you could call it that, that mechanics can obtain through the FAA. It's like an official title or role or privileges that you're allowed. And that does require a certain amount of time working in the field full time, like 3 years or something. Oh, wow. So you need to be experienced. You need to, I guess, get a lot of real world experience. And then again, it's a written exam, and then if you pass that, when I got mine, I had an interview with someone at the FSDO. I'm not sure if they still do it that way, but the interview, if they are doing that, was kind of more a formality. If you pass the written test and you can prove that you have the 3-year experience, then you're good to go with the IA. And then the interesting thing with the IA, compared to the A&P license, the A&P is good for forever, basically, unless you have some issue where they revoke it or something like that. Although you're supposed to stay involved, otherwise you need to kind of spend some time getting back up to speed. But the IA, on the other hand, actually does expire. And if you don't meet certain, I guess, currency requirements, then you would have to go through the whole process again. So it's important to just stay on top of keeping it current and renewing it.
Is keeping it current like you have to work on so many airplane?
There's a list of ways that you can meet the currency requirements, whether it's doing like 4 annual inspections each year.
Gotcha.
Or a certain number of major repairs and alterations. But yeah, there's a real there's defined requirements, and you have to make sure you submit the correct paperwork and everything to get it renewed.
Gotcha. So when you get licensed, does that give you the ability to work on any type of aircraft? Like, could you technically work on helicopters, single engine jets,
hot air balloons.
Okay.
Gliders.
So there's not individual ratings or certificates for each.
It's one of those funny things where it's kind of like, here's your A&P license. Go out there and work on whatever. Yeah. But there is in the regulations, there's kind of some wording in there that basically means you need to get training.
Gotcha.
On the job training. You're you're kind of limited to not being able to do tasks that you aren't, I guess, stuff you haven't done before or stuff you don't know.
Yeah.
You need training so that you can do the task.
So the 18 months you're in school, are they actually teaching you how to work on every like type of aircraft? Or is it mainly just to pass the check ride or the test at the end?
The test? It's probably more the latter. Each school is going to have certain stuff in their lab. So you are going to work on what's available to you at the school. Maybe some schools have a lot better like turbine engine equipment where you're going to be more familiar with those. The school I went to had a pretty good mix of everything, but the curriculum focuses on what's available.
Gotcha.
And yeah, once you graduate, you should have a really good basic foundation in everything.
Yeah.
Like airplanes, like what a flight school would have, general aviation. You should know some about that, but you should also know about, a Boeing or an Airbus. Yeah. So it's more generalized.
Yeah. So then when you are licensed, you find a job and they would have people to kind of get you up to speed on what you're going to be working at that shop. So like you might get a job at a helicopter shop, then they'll kind of train you on how to do a helicopter. Yep. Obviously, you probably know how to read aircraft maintenance handbooks or whatever. So that kind of gives you the basis of how to work on it, and then kind of mentorship at that point.
Exactly. Yeah, you should learn how to utilize maintenance documents, to find what you need to get you through a job, but you're still going to need help from someone that knows what's going on. So you're not just starting your first job as an A&P and going out and changing an engine. You're not going to immediately do some invasive repair on an airframe. It's very basic stuff. Like in my first job, I was disassembling a lot of panels just so that the inspector could look at it for the annual inspection.
Gotcha.
Taking the seats out and putting the seats back in. Very basic stuff. But it's still important to have that foundation as you progress. If you don't know how to properly access what you're going to work on, you're already at a disadvantage.
Yeah. I've already seen you crawl in the back of our airplane.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how you got back there sometimes.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. The maintenance manuals, often you'll say, okay, I need to do this particular job. I'll go look at the manual, see what the instructions are.
Yeah.
And you'll read through it, and it's like, great, no problem. I'm going to just go out there. This is going to take like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But then if you aren't familiar with the airplane, it's going to be obvious pretty quick that it's going to be more involved than that, because that's just once you have the airplane all opened up.
Yeah.
You got to access what you're working on.
Yeah.
And that can be 2/3 of the job right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long would you say it took you to feel comfortable enough to kind of work on any aircraft or airplane? Like where,
Well,
if you had the maintenance manual, all the access to all that, like, do you think at this point in your career you could open up any, like if I just handed you a maintenance handbook?
No. My specialty is definitely with smaller piston engine aircraft, stuff you guys operate and similar.
Mm-hmm.
If I had someone call me up and say, "Oh, I've got a Cessna Citation, and I need," I don't even know.
Yeah.
Who knows what they would need?
Yeah.
It would not really be something I'd feel comfortable
Gotcha.
working on. So I think at this point I would be comfortable looking at maybe a certain make and model of small airplane, and see if it's something that I'm comfortable on.
Yeah.
But hey, like a Cessna 182, sure, I'm very comfortable doing whatever on one of those. I think it would be difficult for an individual to really have a background that would allow them to work on anything that showed up. And it's kind of funny that often I feel like people believe that, oh, this person's an A&P. They should know how to work on my airplane. And they say, oh, I've got this, it's kind of uncommon airplane. They say, I've got this problem, not really exactly sure what it is. Just come over here and fix it. And they don't have the maintenance documents, and I would have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
Like I could maybe make some guesses and slowly try to troubleshoot the problems, but again, it's not going to be easy for someone to work on anything. You would need you would need experience.
Yeah. So do you find, like, I mean, at least I did before, I called a lot of mechanic shops. Do you find there are kind of, I guess, money or hour hungry or whatever the case, job hungry mechanics that will say yes to whatever, even though they may not have that much experience in? Or do you think most mechanics are pretty cautious on that side and will, no, I wouldn't feel comfortable working on that?
I think probably most mechanics would avoid getting themselves into a situation where they don't know what they're doing, and they're just gonna cause problems for both themselves and the customer. Probably the situation you're describing, rather than being after the money or like they really need the work. My thought is that it's probably a little bit more inexperience. Like they haven't actually got themselves in a really bad spot yet. It really just takes one bad experience to teach you to not take on work that you don't know how to do.
Yeah. Now, are your bad experience as a mechanic like getting into something and then basically not knowing how to put it back or fix it, or is a bad experience going as far as like the airplane malfunctions while flying?
Yeah, it could be either. I fortunately haven't had any experiences like that, but um, I I think often it's getting yourself so deep into a job that you can't extricate yourself, but you don't see a way to complete it to where the airplane's going to be airworthy. Um, and that can, in a way, happen to any mechanic if you aren't careful. It's hard to judge the condition of an airplane without digging a little deeper. So it just really compounds the problem if you don't know much about that particular type. It can go bad pretty quick.
Well, luckily you haven't been in any situation where the airplane malfunctioned after you were done working on it, but
no, that I think that's the sort of nightmare that keeps mechanics up at night.
Now, when that happens, because obviously it happens, airplanes malfunction, they, whatever, engine failures or engine issues happens, frequently with how many airplanes are in the air. Would you say a lot of that's due to a mechanic doing a poor job, or like the customers trying to get them out, or or like just a lack of maintenance in general on the ownership side versus the mechanic side?
Yeah, it could be any of those situations you described. It's easy to be complacent, not paying attention. You get distracted. You're not actually reading through the manual completely. Just on the mechanics side, I don't think anyone's purposely careless.
Yeah.
But it's a demanding job. You really have to stay focused. If you get pulled away from a job, it's important to take steps to make sure that something isn't forgotten, especially if someone else takes up where you left off. That next mechanic can make some assumptions about what work was done, and that's an easy way to have a failure that no one anticipated. So communication is important if there's multiple people working on it. If it's just one individual, it can be really hard. It's great when you're working with a team where you can just get your coworker to just look over your work real quick. Sometimes when you're tired or you've worked a really long shift, you just don't notice something that someone else is going to see really fast. So that can be great working in a team. But if you're working on your own, I think it's important to just slow down and avoid the pressures. He mentioned having the owner pressure you. External pressures, that's a big...
Well, I'm sure in every job you do, the owner's always pushing you to get it done.
Well, you've been great. Like, as far as flight schools go, you're really good about understanding how, like, if something's going to take more time, you got to do it right.
Well, I think that's the most important time, like especially an operational type airplane that's in a flight school or rental company or charter, is like, you can't rush the job. You're going to be flying other people in that airplane, right?
Exactly.
So do you see the like maintenance cutting corners when it comes to those type of
Yeah, well,
jobs?
I've seen a lot of examples of um, an owner or operator wanting to try and just maybe delay repairs for a while.
Yeah.
Often it's actually due to the parts that you need being unavailable for a while. So maybe they're back ordered, or maybe they've got to come from the other side of the country, and it's going to be 3 days before you can get those parts. So I've definitely experienced a lot of operators saying, well, how about we just keep flying it until the new part comes in? And that works sometimes. In fact, a lot of times you can kind of defer maintenance. But there's certain things, you just can't take that risk.
Yeah.
And it's hard as a mechanic to be assertive and push back on that. Because often you don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And that's part of where having years of experience can be beneficial. But even so, it's really difficult to know with any kind of certainty how long until a certain component's going to fail.
Yeah.
Just sticking with kind of your gut feeling is often all you can really do. And it's your certificate on the line, basically. It could potentially be your career that you're kind of taking a chance on. If you say, okay, sure, let's just pretend like we didn't find that problem, and we'll just put it back together and order the part, and 50 hours from now we'll take care of it.
Now, if you're working on an aircraft and the owner's like super insistent that you just put it back together so they can take it to a different shop or whatever, because you worked on it, does that put you on the hook if something were to happen? Even if you didn't sign it off, like you didn't sign that it was airworthy or anything, you didn't give them the logs, for that maintenance work. You just reassembled it because they needed to take it somewhere else, or they didn't believe you, or,
Well, if you follow the regulations properly, then you can protect yourself from that. Any maintenance that you do, you are supposed to document in a logbook entry.
So if you put a logbook entry in saying you did not finish the job, but you reassembled the airplane to,
you could
fly,
do something along those lines.
That would be a protection enough? Or are you like, if that person died, because something happened, is that your fault?
You aren't obligated to make a statement that an airplane's airworthy.
Yeah.
You can just document the work that you do and tell the owner that it is not airworthy.
Yeah.
And that they can it's their airplane.
Sure.
And there's ways to move airplanes when they're not technically airworthy.
Yeah.
But it is a process. They need a special permit, flight permit, ferry permit. So you can go that route. And on the IAA side of things, when doing annual inspections, you can sign off an annual as being completed and the airplane is not airworthy, and you document what's deficient and
that pilot,
and you provide that to the owner, and basically you're stating that the airplane's going to be airworthy when those items are taken care of.
Gotcha.
And that can be accomplished by a different AMP.
Yeah. Now, obviously, they can fly at their own discretion at that point. I mean, that's their choice and license on the line,
right.
But
it's important that the mechanic does what they can to protect themselves and the owner, or the pilot, or whatever. But everyone is making their own choices, and whether or not someone's going to follow the law, the regulations, that's their choice.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was always curious, like, how much protection you all have from, signing off on airplanes or not signing off on airplanes.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, like, you have insurance and liability for that reason in case something bad happened, that you would still be covered. But I guess they would come look at your logs and what you did on the airplanes.
Yeah, there's protecting yourself from making a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's not the same as protecting yourself from negligence.
Yeah.
You can't protect yourself from negligence.
And at that point, that's you lose your license.
Yeah, you potentially can. You can.
Okay.
You can absolutely lose your license, and you can also have criminal charges potentially brought against you, some sort of lawsuit. Now, the FAA doesn't really get into that sort of thing, but someone could absolutely take you to court and claim that you did something that either cost them money or worse, caused an accident.
Yeah. Does that make you nervous? Like, working on airplanes, there's a ton of old, crap box airplanes flying around.
Yeah, it's it's probably the worst part of the whole job. You're unfortunately dealing with a really high stakes situation. There's a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
You're working with expensive airplanes, and you're also doing things that can cause an accident if not done properly. So, that's in my experience the thing that takes a lot of the fun out of the work.
Do you like working on older airplanes, or?
Older airplanes are awesome.
Yeah.
Like, the history of aviation is so amazing. It's incredible. The technology that has progressed in the last 100 years, seeing innovative things that people come up with.
Yeah.
And just style-wise, it's like looking at old architecture versus modern architecture. There's aesthetics that came into play during aircraft design over the years. So working on old airplanes can be really fun. Feeling like you're kind of getting back to the roots of aviation. It's cool. But on the flip side of that is, like you said, there's a lot of crap out there. It just wears out. Stuff wears out.
Mm-hmm.
The manufacturers, if they're even still in business, they're not making parts for these 70-year-old airplanes.
Yeah, for sure.
So sourcing materials, trying to make proper repairs, like, basically anything can be fixed or rebuilt if you're willing to invest enough time and money into it. But a lot of old airplanes, an old 170 that's 70 years old. The owner might not realize that they were buying something that is going to require a lot of money to keep flying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it can be hard dealing with situations where the customer is like, I thought this would be an inexpensive airplane to maintain. And the reality is that there's a lot of problems with it, just stuff wearing out or poor maintenance over the years. Yeah.
Now, you buy a new airplane, say it's $500,000. You buy an old airplane that's $100,000. Obviously, both will need maintenance at some point. But do you see I would say this is a huge debate on, aviation Reddit pages. It's like, do you save the, $400,000 and buy this old airplane, or, and pay maintenance over time? Would you end up paying that much in maintenance over, 5-10 years?
Well, probably not. That's a huge, a huge difference in cost. But also, you've got airplanes that have pretty different capabilities.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of an airplane that's rolling off a factory floor now, like brand new, that doesn't have really modern, capable avionics.
Yeah.
That if you were to retrofit into an older aircraft, you'd be into that $100,000.
Yeah, that's true.
So, in a way, you could maybe compare the two, but my feeling is that you kind of have some pretty different equipment to begin with, and that makes it,
I guess depending on how much you wanted to spend, you could get up to that range. But
yeah, maybe. But then it doesn't really make sense to do that.
Just go buy a new airplane.
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, if you wanted an old style airplane, it would make sense, right? If you like a certain style of an old airplane and updated it completely,
Yeah, but you can get into an older airplane for substantially less money than a new airplane, and it's not necessarily going to suddenly require a huge investment to keep it maintained properly. It's just easy to get into a bad situation like that if you think that you're going to have a quote cheap airplane to fly, and that's probably why it's important to have a really good pre-buy inspection done if you're, especially with older airplanes. People you trust, you need to have a good mechanic look it over and tell you if you're going to be facing a lot of expense right away. Yeah.
So with the pre-buy, is it pretty easy to spot a lot of those issues? Because I go buy a used car, I can go look at the engine, look at the tubing, and look at the hoses and the, all the clamps and see that they're cracked or, getting loose or whatever the case may be. Is it kind of similar with an aircraft where you can go in and look at it, without tearing the engine apart? Or?
Well, yeah, you can find out a lot of stuff just visually looking at it. But you kind of have to dig deeper into the history of it to try to piece together whether the airplane's been actively flying lately, if it's just been sitting for 5 years in Florida. It's probably going to have some corrosion issues, both in the engine and just in the airframe. But if it's actively flying quite a bit, you can typically get most of the information you need with a good, thorough visual inspection. Yeah. And going through the aircraft records and whatnot.
Those normally take a while to do a pre-buy, like a day, 2 days.
It, again, is situation dependent. There's no true definition of a pre-buy.
I mean, that's made up for a consumer mind,
Yeah,
right? I mean, but peace of mind type of idea, but there's no...
It can be as much or as little as the buyer wants to do. An older aircraft, probably it would be beneficial to dig deeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can be a multi-day thing. It can be half a day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just depends.
Just depends on what you suspect, the type of airplane, the age, how complex it is. Yeah.
Nice. So I've got a new segment I want to try with you.
Okay.
For the podcast.
Okay.
We'll see if it works. So we're going to test your mechanic skills.
Uh-oh.
And it's, do you know your airplane parts? All right.
Okay.
Okay. So first one, elevator trim tab.
I've heard of those.
Okay.
Yes.
Where is it located? Let's make sure you know what it is.
Well, it's on the elevator typically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as a mechanic, I guess I should ask this first. Do you know what the parts are doing in the airplane to make sure they're working properly, or do you just know what it is? Like, obviously, you're a pilot, so you know a little bit more than some would, but...
Well, the elevator trim tab, also commonly referred to as the pitch trim tab. It works opposite of the control that it's trimming. So if you're trying to get more nose up pitch, then the elevator would need to move up to push the tail down.
Yeah.
And the trim tab is going to move opposite that, which the airflow across it is going to help push the elevator into the position that is desired for the result you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So that's one. Give you an easy one. Rudder pedals.
The rudder pedals, that's where your feet go.
Okay. What are are there different kind of rudder pedals? Like how they work, I guess, the functionality of them.
Not entirely sure I know what you're getting at here, but
I mean, I know of, like, you've got, like, they're connected by a wire or a cable.
Yeah.
And are there electric rudders? Like, are there electric powered rudders?
Well, in some big aircraft, you might have a fly-by-wire type system where you don't actually have mechanical linkages between any of the flight controls and what they're controlling, the control surfaces. In the aircraft that we would see in, like, the training fleet, it would be a mechanical linkage, and it usually is a cable between the rudder pedals and the rudder. But it could be a tube, like a push-pull tube. And other differences is Sometimes it could be something simple like a bar where you push on one and the opposite side of the bar moves back. So it's like a bar like that. Torque tubes are a very common thing where the pedal itself is attached to a tube that is specific for that side. So you would have 2 torque tubes. And then again, it could go to cables, it could go to push-pull tubes.
Gotcha.
So there's variations, but they're all always accomplishing the same thing.
Yeah. Okay, a little bit harder. You ready?
Probably not.
Okay. Flap synchronizer.
A flap synchronizer. Well, I think the name is probably pretty good. Often components are named with something that describes their function.
Yeah.
And so with flaps, it can be pretty bad if you have one flap that is giving a different amount of deflection than the other side. Or if you had a split flap situation where one is extended fully and one didn't move at all, you would end up with a very significant rolling component.
Have you ever seen that happen before?
I have not.
I'd be curious if that is like kind of common or common.
I think it depends. Like a flap synchronizer, if you've got flaps that operate electrically, if the actuator is such that you've got one for each flap, then one actuator could function and the other one wouldn't, and you would end up with an asymmetric flap extension. So a synchronizer could either be a mechanical interlink to make sure that they aren't capable of moving independently of each other.
Like one stuck, the other one isn't. They'd both end up not deploying.
Right. Or it could be something that prevents either flap from moving if one is non-functional.
Gotcha. Okay. Gyroflex coupling.
Gyroflex coupling. I don't know. So there is a component that I'm familiar with, which is called a flux gate, and that is associated with a directional instrument, like a compass type instrument. So a slaved directional gyro, a simple DG that you just set, when you're in level flight or on the ground and you know what direction you're going, you set it. But you could have a slaved directional gyro that has a flux gate, and I don't know if this is similar to what you're describing.
I have I don't know what I am describing.
Yeah, well, my best guess is, because I'm not familiar specifically with what you said, but it's often referred to as a magnetometer, and it is just like an electronic compass that you don't have to set your DG. It's going to work, and it'll give you a correct heading.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't even know if these are real. It's just a list.
It could be something totally different. But
well, it seems good enough.
Since you aren't going to tell me I'm wrong.
All right. Last one. Hyperdrive power coupling.
Hyperdrive, that sounds like something that's probably on like a starship.
Yep. It's probably in Star Wars.
There you go.
Yep.
So I haven't worked on one of those yet, but hopefully at some point.
That'd be pretty cool.
It would be cool.
I'm sure. Well, it might not be fake. Maybe Elon Musk has something like that going on
Yeah,
with
probably.
with his rockets.
Yeah.
If they go into hyperspace.
Yeah.
But, yep. All right. Thanks for participating in that,
that was
new
fun.
segment. We'll see if it continues. Maybe just for mechanics. See if they know what they're talking about. Let's see here. I wanted to ask you. Oh, what's your opinion on owners working on their own airplanes?
I think it can be a really good thing and it can be a really bad thing.
Yeah.
It depends on if they're willing to get the training or knowledge they need to do it correctly. I've seen some pretty crazy things over the years where it's like, was this a mechanic that did this? Was it the owner? Was it like, who did this? Because it's really dangerous or it really messed things up. It's going to be difficult to actually fix now because they drilled these holes in something that really shouldn't have holes in it, so weird stuff. But if an owner is really willing to do it properly and admit that they don't know what they don't know, it can be great. There's a lot of things that an owner can do that will save them money and keep their airplane in better shape than if they don't do it. Everything takes time.
Now, but like from a mechanic standpoint, would you rather everybody take their plane to a mechanic to get worked on, or like, is it good for people to work on their planes?
Well, there's really too much work out there for just mechanics to be doing it. So my personal opinion is that there's more than enough work out there for a mechanic to be working as much as they want. So just from the standpoint of saying, if all the owners are doing this work, it pulls all that work away from the mechanics. I don't think that,
and that's a good thing, probably, if they're that busy, right? I mean,
I don't know any mechanics that aren't busy if they're trying to be busy. And so much of what owners could be doing is stuff that I think a lot of mechanics would appreciate not having to do. But alternatively, it can take time away from the mechanic to try and help owners if they show up. If they come in and say, I want to help out with my annual, and they want you to walk them through everything that they can do, that's a lot of time, actually. So to make it worthwhile, it needs to be something that the owner is committed to doing research on their own and following through over and over again, not just showing up for one annual and saying, okay, let's do this. I'm going to save you 10 hours. And you should take that into account when you make the invoice, because I'm here taking panels off or whatever. And that just doesn't work well. But doing oil changes, if if an owner goes through the process of finding out how to do a proper oil change, that's fantastic. It'll save them money. It'll save them from having to take it to the maintenance shop.
Yeah. Okay. When I guess the question of like a aircraft owner, I mean, I manage them. I don't own one, obviously, but I manage them. When taking an airplane to a mechanic and they say, oh, this job will do, like a annual's, what, 20 something hours?
Yeah, it depends on.
Yeah. Let's just say for like our diamond,
airplane,
right?
sure,
like our diamond, it's
27
hours.
You could say whatever. It's very common to have a flat rate for an annual inspection or 100-hour inspection. So whatever that is, 20 hours, 30 hours, it definitely depends on the model of aircraft.
Yeah. Now, I'm familiar with like car mechanics, motorcycle mechanics, and how they work. They have a job. It's billed for, let's say it's 6 hours for something, but they could potentially get it done sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But they're still billed for whatever that job should take. Is there kind of a common hourly that certain jobs take amongst mechanics? Or is it just what you personally have experienced, working on, let's use the annual, for example. You just know it's going to take this long. Are you billing all that time that you worked on it, that you could get it done sooner? Or like, you just know it's actually going to take me this long to get it done?
I think a lot of the flat rate type jobs, those numbers come from either experience or communication within the industry.
Sure.
Very rarely there's at least for smaller airplanes, there's rarely information from the manufacturer or really any other I guess industry source. It's really more shops talking with each other. If a shop isn't familiar with a certain make and model of airplane, they might have a shop that they're they might be friends with the owner of a different shop and say, oh, hey, what do you guys bill on this job? Yeah. What's reasonable? If you can't come up with any information like that, either A, maybe you shouldn't be taking the job, or B, you just have to use your experience to figure it out. Looking at maintenance documents these days, if you have the maintenance manual for a Cirrus or a Diamond or any of the common new aircraft, somewhere in there's going to be a checklist probably that's going to be a very comprehensive checklist detailing all the things to check during a 100-hour inspection or other recurring inspections. And it is typically such a long list that if you were to imagine doing everything on that list, the thought of somehow completing that within a reasonable flat rate time seems kind of daunting.
Yeah.
And so that's where experience with the specific type of airplane really benefits you, and you can bring down the time that you put into it. So probably the reality is that the typical flat rate is the amount of time that it's requiring to do the job, not an overestimate, and everyone that is doing annual inspections is getting 5 free hours of labor, because there's a lot of things to do during an annual inspection.
Now, like your situation's a little different because you're more independent as a mechanic, right? You do a lot of your own work. Like if I were to take an airplane to a mechanic shop where they're, bringing airplane, 10, 20 airplanes in a month, and I go in for an oil change and they say, oh, it's going to be 5 hours. I mean, most likely, are they actually working the 5 hours? Or I don't know how long it takes to do an oil change, but
probably they are actually putting in that many hours, but probably the work is being performed by a shop helper, maybe an intern or a brand new A&P, and being supervised by someone that's overseeing numerous jobs. And so collectively, they're probably working 5 hours on it. But that entry level employee is not getting paid.
Which,
that
what
much.
they do with
and
that
that's kind of where having a big shop, it can be pretty lucrative, I imagine, if it's run well. Because you are doing these jobs where you're billing the normal shop rate. And it's the entry level employees that are doing most of the grunt work there. So
I just I don't think aircraft mechanics are bad. I actually liked every aircraft mechanic I've dealt with. But I think there's a carryover from car mechanics, that we don't trust them as consumers. It's like, they just find whatever issue they can in order to bill me more, or, they're sitting over there eating lunch for 3 hours while the airplane's already done, but they got to keep it for 5 hours because that's what they billed me for. I hope aircraft mechanics aren't doing that, because it's already expensive enough to work to maintain an airplane. But do you think there are mechanics who are doing like that, I found that, the whole air filter exchange at, Jiffy Lube, like, you got to replace this, and this, your tires are bad, like.
I think for the most part, mechanics strive to be honest. They're not trying to round up more work that's going to make them money, and not doing things that they're billing for. Probably both, because if with an airplane, you're putting stuff in a logbook, and that's a permanent a document that's going to be around, and that can really come back and bite you. So it's potentially very serious to say you're doing work that you're not actually doing. And probably the majority of bad experiences that owners have with mechanics is caused more by I wouldn't say honest mistakes, but running into problems that were unforeseen, rather than the mechanic trying to pull a fast one on the owner.
Well, I'm sure, like in any other situation, like with our turbo hose, right, that would have like frustrated someone else. I mean, obviously you and I had talked about it, and it's no big deal. I'm not mad at you, so don't think I am. But like, I guess, would that be like the unforeseen, like, you're putting on the engine cowling, and there's something was
see
wrong,
something at the last second, and that, again, yeah, it's it's situations like that where there's suddenly a lot of pressure to get the airplane done.
Yeah.
But something happened, or you didn't notice something originally, and it kind of brings everything to a halt, and no one's happy. And yeah, I definitely think that being an airplane mechanic it puts you in a lot of positions where I like to say no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
And it can feel like no one likes mechanics. You
Yeah.
know, like, yeah, either you're charging too much, or you're doing things too slowly, or uh, you're always bringing the bad news.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is broken.
Yeah.
This, you have to replace this. It's going to be $20,000. You know,
You're the dentist of airplanes.
Exactly. It's just it's tough sometimes.
Yeah. With advice you would give to an owner of an airplane going into a mechanic shop, if they had an issue, what's the best way to communicate those issues to a mechanic? Like, I always feel like I'm like giving way too much information when I talk to any mechanic. Like, I was flying here at this altitude, this temperature, these were the winds. Like, like I give it all, right? Like, is that helpful for a mechanic? Do they not care whatsoever?
It probably depends on the mechanic. I always really appreciate input. I admit that often I am skeptical of what I'm hearing. I always try to keep an open mind, both as to, what he's saying. Okay, I'll definitely think about that, and troubleshoot based on that input.
Yeah.
But at the same time, what you see as a pilot, what you notice when you notice it, it, you're doing pilot stuff up there.
Yeah.
You're not being a mechanic as you're flying around. So it may or may not be helpful.
Yeah.
And
what would be the most helpful thing that someone could bring to you besides just saying, I had this issue? Like, do you like if obviously we have avionics in our airplane, pictures, like, we have that fluctuating,
pictures,
so we try to get you video and video of it happening.
That helps a ton.
Yeah.
Videos definitely are great, because then you have real documentation. Yeah. Maybe the other thing that could be really helpful is to not claim that you know what's wrong. Often people will come to me saying, oh, I have this specific issue. And you say, okay, well, we can work on that. Maybe we should order these parts. Yeah. And then you get the parts, and it turns out that they were completely incorrect. So, I try to diagnose prior to coming to some kind of conclusion. And if the owner really believes that they know what the problem is, they should at least have an open mind with the mechanic and say, well, let's determine for sure.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we have a good relationship because you're here all the time. You work on our plane specifically here. Do you think it's helpful for owners to build relationship with mechanics, or do mechanics like just kind of leave me alone type mentality? Or
I think it's really important to build a relationship. You need to be able to trust each other.
Yeah.
And if I don't feel like I can bring up issues that I am encountering with the owner because I'm worried that they are going to be upset or they aren't going to believe me or they think that I'm trying to pull a fast one on them. It makes it hard for me to do a good job of maintaining their airplane because it leads me more to second guessing whether there really is a problem. I like talking about maintenance issues with the owner, and they can tell me if they are operating the airplane in a certain way that can really have a big bearing on the amount of maintenance that I feel needs to be done in certain areas. So I think it's beneficial all around to have good communication and have a good relationship with each other. Yeah.
Nice. All right. 2 more things before we wrap it up.
Sure.
One, what's your favorite airplane to work on?
Yeah.
If you had to work on the same airplane for the rest of your life,
rest of my life,
the rest of your life, every day you had to go out to the hangar and work on a airplane. You can pick any airplane.
Wow. Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not sure that.
Do you have a favorite engine? Or a preferred engine you work on, or I'm sure every airplane kind of has like their pros and cons, right? But
no. This is a funny question because there's easy and then there's interesting. And it's the interesting that keeps me coming back.
Yeah.
And if you're working on the same thing over and over again, that's not particularly interesting after a while.
Yeah.
So having a challenge is great, but sometimes it's nice to have the easy jobs too.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, a challenging aircraft will have easy days, right? I mean, some days it'll just be an oil change, maybe a tire popped, but you had to work on one aircraft. And you could take the lineup, like if it's like a Cirrus SR, you can have the 22 turbo. I'll give it to you.
I think it would more be just whatever airplane that I'm having fun with. Like if I'm working on an airplane that I get to go fly in.
Do you like working on your own personal aircrafts or?
Yeah, I mean, I do.
Like you fly our Diamond, like was that enjoyable to work on it and fly it? Like, is that more enjoyable?
I really like working on airplanes that I'm going to fly in. Yeah. Because I want to be comfortable with the maintenance that is being done on any airplane that I fly in. So
I'll switch the question.
Okay.
If you could choose not to work on an airplane, what airplane would it be? And please don't say the Diamond.
Yeah, no. Overall, the Diamond's a good airplane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just know it was super new to you when you started on it, but yeah, if you could choose one airplane to never work on the rest of your life, you just can't stand it.
Yeah, that's funny. There probably hasn't been an airplane that I haven't really thought, yeah, I can see working on this all the time. So as an example, Beechcraft Bonanzas, they are incredibly uncomfortable to work inside of. You take the seats and the floorboards out, and there's just like pokey stuff all over. You can't, like, there's hardly anywhere you can be inside the airplane when it's disassembled for an inspection or any kind of heavy maintenance. You can't sit down comfortably in there. You can't get under the panel without stuff jabbing you in the back. It's really horrible to work on. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you get used to dealing with the problems. But if I was going to just pick one specific airplane, like, I haven't done a lot of work on air coupes, but the little experience I've had working on air coupes, I wasn't too into them. But it could just be that I didn't get used to it. Yeah, I think everything has a learning curve, and you figure out how to deal with it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Yeah, so I would just want to work on an airplane that keeps the job interesting. Yeah, something that's fun to fly. And
okay. Well, then my last question for you is, either in your flying experience or maintenance experience, do you have any crazy run-ins with maintenance or any crazy flying stories? Could be exciting, could be scary, could be like some dude's airplane came in duct taped together.
Yeah, well, I've definitely seen a lot of really questionable things, a lot of neglected airplanes where control cables, you know, hanging on by threads, and engines that have serious internal problems. So I've seen scary stuff, but I don't like dwelling on that. Airplanes are typically well-maintained and safe. But I do like to think about all the really cool, interesting things that I've been able to participate in because I work in maintenance.
I guess I shouldn't have said it crazy, but like, what's your most memorable? Either flying or maintenance, you know, memory.
Yeah, well, I'm currently involved in bringing these really neat airplanes over from Italy, manufactured by Porto Aviation, called the Risen, and it's a really awesome 2-seat sport plane. Goes really fast, and designed and built by a company owned by this awesome guy that invited me on a cool adventure flying one across the Atlantic last fall. That was absolutely a highlight of the things that I've been able to experience. But, you know, if I were to have someone ask me if aircraft maintenance is a good career, I would say that it really depends on what you want out of your career.
Yeah.
You can end up seeing and experiencing some really, really fun, cool stuff. But if you're not into airplanes, if you don't love airplanes, flying, it doesn't have to be airplanes. It could be helicopters. If you don't love aviation, then it's a terrible career.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because that's been like a huge topic in all of the podcasts that we've done so far. In the flying side, there's the opportunity to make money, which I'm sure right now with the lack of maintenance shops, and so many more airplanes. I mean, the money opportunities definitely there to make a lot, right?
Yeah.
And to be busy and to be working.
Right.
But and same with flying. But there's the passion side. You can't just be chasing the opportunity to make money, but you got to be passionate about just aviation in general for it to work.
Yeah.
And that's
it doesn't
huge in
make
flying.
sense if you
but
don't
it seems like
enjoy
it's the case for mechanics.
Yeah, definitely. You meet cool people, you see cool things. And I think everyone involved in aviation, if they have a passion for it, they see when someone else has a passion for it. And they also see when you don't have a passion for it. And the opportunities, I think, are given to the people that obviously have a passion for it. You have to commit.
Yeah.
It's really hard to just kind of be in it for the job, because it'll eat you up if you're just there trying to earn a paycheck. But yeah, over the years, I've had awesome opportunities, been able to have people invite me on all kinds of really cool flights. I've been on a B-17.
Sweet.
Flying in a B-17. And that was memorable. That was pretty early in my career. But again, it was like I was really excited about it, and that led to an opportunity. So yeah, you just stick with it. You work hard when that's required, and then you get to have fun when the opportunity arises.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's awesome you have your pilot's license. I think that helps a ton with, at least on my side of being the pilot flying the airplane. I can explain a lot more to you that you understand.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. So, and then, I mean, obviously you get the more experience of being able to go fly the aircrafts you work on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's where the fun is.
Yeah.
Well, working on them can be fun too. But,
flying them is way better.
Yeah. I think every pilot would be a better pilot if they at least learn, some stuff about how airplanes work, function.
What always shocked
get
me,
involved with the maintenance just a little bit. And I think every mechanic would be a better mechanic if they were a pilot.
Yeah.
Because you learn so much.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Reed, for joining us. That was awesome.
It's been fun.
We might have you on again. Obviously, you're here. So
I look forward to it.
But I always invite people to send in questions or topics that they want to hear about. So like if you have any, maintenance questions, mechanic related questions, you can DM me through Instagram or Facebook, or comment on the video. And then next time we have Reed on, we'll address those questions. So sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
Thanks, Matt.
Cool. Thanks, Reed.